On the morning of June 5, 1960, 3 teenagers were found brutally murdered on the shores of Lake Bodom in Finland, their bodies torn by knife wounds and blunt force trauma. Only one member of the group survived, clinging to life in a blood-soaked tent. What happened at Lake Bodom has remained one of Europe's most haunting unsolved mysteries. A crime scene so vicious, so chaotic, that investigators have argued about it for more than 6 decades. Was it a random killer, a personal vendetta, or something far stranger hiding beneath the calm waters of that Finnish lake? The story begins the night before, on June 4th. 4 friends, 15-year-old girls Maila Irmeli Björklund and Anja Tuulikimäki, along with their boyfriends, 18-year-old Seppo Antero Boisman and Eero Antero Nilsson, set out for a camping trip near Lake Bodom, not far from the city of Espoo. It was supposed to be a carefree summer night, filled with laughter, young love, and the quiet stillness of the Nordic wilderness. They pitched their tent on a small patch of land between the water and a wooded area. It was an idyllic scene. The lake glimmered in the soft light of the Finnish summer night, and the 4 teenagers had no idea that darkness was about to descend on them. At some point before dawn, someone, or perhaps more than one person, approached their campsite. The attack that followed was savage. All 3 of the teenagers, except for one, were stabbed and bludgeoned repeatedly. Maila, one of the girls, suffered the most horrific wounds, suggesting she was singled out for particular cruelty. Their tent was slashed open from the outside, the canvas riddled with cuts, as though the killer or killers had struck through the fabric before entering. The violence was frenzied, chaotic, and left behind a scene that investigators would later struggle to make sense of. By morning, 3 of the friends lay dead. Only Niels Gustafsson, the other boyfriend, was found alive, though barely. He had a broken jaw, a concussion, and multiple stab wounds. He was discovered lying on top of the tent, disoriented and covered in blood. His survival would forever complicate the case. Was he a victim who narrowly escaped death? Or was he somehow involved in the killings of his closest friends? For decades, that single question has divided investigators, journalists, and the public. When police arrived, the crime scene was already compromised. Curious locals had wandered over after hearing about the tragedy, trampling footprints, touching objects, even moving evidence around. Some of the teenagers' belongings were missing, including wallets and personal items, but strangely, their motorcycles were left untouched. The chaotic scene made it almost impossible to reconstruct what had truly happened. What remained clear was that the attack was sudden, brutal, and left no obvious trail to the killer. Early theories suggested an outsider, perhaps a stranger passing through the area. Witnesses later reported seeing a tall, blond man walking near the campsite on the morning of the murders, but his identity was never confirmed. Some thought it might have been a vagrant, a hunter, or even a local man with a grudge. But no immediate suspect emerged. The police, overwhelmed by the brutality of the killings, struggled to establish a clear direction in the investigation. In the years that followed, suspicion began to settle on several figures. One was a man named Hans Assmann, a German immigrant living nearby. Assmann had a strange reputation in Espoo. He was said to have connections to Soviet intelligence, and his erratic behavior made locals uneasy. On the day after the murders, he appeared at a Helsinki hospital with dirt under his fingernails, his clothes stained, and his demeanor nervous. Yet police dismissed him as a serious suspect, claiming his alibi was solid. Still, many in the public remained convinced he knew more than he let on. Another suspect was a local man with a violent past. Some investigators believed the attack was not random, but targeted, possibly motivated by jealousy or rage. The intensity of the wounds inflicted on Maila suggested the killer might have been driven by personal obsession. Could it have been someone from the teenager's social circle, perhaps a rejected suitor or an embittered rival? This theory gained traction but was never substantiated with hard evidence. Through it all, the figure of Niels Gustafsson loomed large. As the only survivor, he was both a key witness and a potential suspect. For decades, police considered him a victim, citing his serious injuries as proof of his innocence. But some forensic experts later argued that his wounds could have been self-inflicted, or at least staged. In 2004, more than 40 years after the crime, Finnish authorities stunned the public by arresting Gustafsson himself, charging him with the murders of his 3 friends. The trial that followed became one of Finland's most sensational court cases. Prosecutors argued that Gustafsson had been in a jealous rage after discovering that his girlfriend Mila had shown interest in Seppo. According to their theory, he lashed out, attacking his friends in a drunken frenzy before injuring himself to appear as a survivor. They presented bloodstain analysis and forensic reconstructions as evidence, but the defense countered that his injuries were too severe to have been self-inflicted, and that the lack of conclusive proof meant the state's case was built on speculation. In 2005, after months of testimony, the court acquitted Niels Gustafsson of all charges. He walked free, legally declared innocent. Yet his acquittal did little to end the debate. For many, he remained the most likely suspect. For others, he was a traumatized victim who had spent his entire life haunted not only by the murder of his friends, but also by the cloud of suspicion that followed him. The truth, as with so many unsolved mysteries, remained maddeningly out of reach. What makes the Lake Bodom murders so chilling is not just the brutality of the crime, but the way it seems to resist resolution. Every theory has its holes. If Gustafsson was the killer, why leave himself injured to the brink of death? If it was an outsider, how could they vanish without a trace? And if it was someone known to the victims, why has no concrete link ever been established? The case sits at the uneasy intersection of forensic science, human psychology, and the limits of criminal investigation. The legend of Lake Bodom has since taken on a life of its own. Over the decades, the story has inspired countless documentaries, books, and even music. The Finnish heavy metal band Children of Bodom took their name directly from the murders, building an entire identity around the darkness of that night. For many Finns, the case has become more than a crime story. It's a cultural scar, a reminder of innocence lost and justice denied. Forensic technology has advanced dramatically since 1960, and yet even with modern DNA testing and computer-assisted reconstructions, the Lake Bodom case remains elusive. Small traces of biological evidence have been analyzed, reanalyzed, and debated endlessly, but no smoking gun has ever been found. Each time new findings are presented, they seem to raise as many questions as they answer. One of the most haunting details of the case is the survivor's perspective. Niels Gustafsson claimed he remembered very little of the night, his memory clouded by trauma and injury. That void of recollection has left an enormous gap in the narrative. What did he see? What did he hear? Did he glimpse the killer's face? Or did the horror of the event erase it from his mind forever? Without his testimony, the truth lies buried beneath layers of speculation and fear. Even today, the scene of the crime remains eerily quiet. Lake Bodom is a picturesque place, popular with campers and fishermen, its waters calm and its forests dense. To a casual visitor, it looks like any other tranquil Nordic lake. But for those who know its story, the landscape carries a weight that can't be ignored. Every ripple of water, every rustle of leaves seems to whisper the unsolved terror of 1960. More than 60 years have passed, and the Lake Bodom murders remain unsolved. Was it a jealous outburst, a stranger's rampage, or something more sinister that has never come to light? The case stands as a reminder that some mysteries never yield their secrets, no matter how much time, science, or scrutiny is applied. What's your read? Was it the lone survivor, an unknown drifter, or a staged cover-up that went terribly wrong? Tell me below. Like, share, and subscribe for weekly Unsolved breakdowns.